Ever dreamed of creating your own video game? Maybe you've already started, mapping out wide characters and epic stories. Or maybe you just love indie games and wonder what it's like behind the curtain. Well, buckle up, because this video might just swap your Player One hat for a dev cap. Today, we're diving deep into indie game development, where wild creativity meets hard reality, sometimes in a head-on collision. We'll unpack a question that nearly every indie developer faces at some point. How do you balance making what you love with actually, making rent? If you're thinking about jumping into game development or just want a peek behind your favorite pixelated curtain, stick around for emotional highs, crushing lows, and some very real talk on how those weird and wonderful indie games make it to your screen. Let's begin. Most indie devs begin with a dream, like, what if Mario, but he's a frog and the floor is lava? There's usually a story to tell, a new mechanic to try, or maybe just the urge to make a game that doesn't exist yet. This is pure creative fuel, making a game driven by vision, not by trends or stockholders. Games like Undertale by Toby Fox, which turned RPG tropes upside down. Celeste, where the story is as much about mental health as it is about platforming. Hyper Light Drifter, born out of Alex Preston's own health journey. Or A Short Hike, which is all about slow, gentle exploration. Every pixel in these games oozes love and intention. But passion projects don't pay for the peanut butter, let alone dev tools, rent, and a steady supply of coffee. Building a game often takes thousands of hours, loads of different skills, art, music, writing, programming, and real money for software, asset packs, and marketing. And let's not forget, you need to get your game in front of actual players, not just your friends and that one supportive aunt. Projects can take years, with no guarantee of ever breaking even. As Lucas Pope, creator of Papers, Please put it, passion is important, but sustainability is the key. If your dream project can't keep the lights on, it becomes a very expensive hobby. That, right there, is the indie developer's central dilemma. So, what happens next? Economic reality smacks you in the shins. The pressure to make something that will actually sell is real. Following trends can be tempting, like taking roguelike onto your cozy farming sim, or pitching your game as it's like Stardew Valley but on Mars. Sometimes this works, but chasing trends can flatten what makes your game special. Remember the wave of social deduction games after Among Us? Most sank without a trace. Beyond sales, there's an emotional toll. Burnout looms large, especially for folks flying solo or in tiny teams. The fear that your project isn't good enough can keep you up at night. Even finishing doesn't end the anxiety. Imagine years of work, only for your launch to get a handful of downloads and a couple of polite tweets. Celeste's creator, Maddie Thorson, said, "There's always a fear that your best work won't be seen, that no one will care, that it won't be worth it. It's a lonely, gut-wrenching ride." Success stories like Hollow Knight or Stardew Valley get all the press. But for every mega hit, there are hundreds of games that quickly fade away. Stardew Valley's Eric Barone spent over 4 years grinding solo, teaching himself every skill along the way, unsure it would ever pay off. He later admitted, "I didn't know if it would ever make money. I just knew it was the game I needed to make." That risk, pouring all your time into something that might flop, makes indie dev uniquely stressful and deeply emotional. So, how do the survivors do it? The most successful indie devs find ways to keep their creative spark alive, while also planning like their next meal depends on it. Because sometimes it does. They start with small, focused prototypes, a single level, a clear mechanic, something playable instead of a pipe dream with 100 features. They test these ideas early and often, tweaking based on feedback before sinking 6 months into an upgrade system no one cares about. Feedback loops with playtesters and fellow devs keep the process grounded and prevent you from making a platformer where nobody can actually jump. Savvy developers also remix familiar genres with clever twists look at Dead Cells, which takes the roguelike and fuses it with silky, smooth action. This makes the game immediately approachable but still fresh. Building a community early is vital. Sharing screenshots, devlogs, or even memes can attract an audience and, more importantly, keep your morale up. Nothing stinks quite like releasing a game into the void. Winning the indie lottery often involves funding hacks. Crowdfunding, like Kickstarter, can help pay local bills and validate your concept. Some opt for early access on Steam, gathering feedback, and a little revenue before the full launch. Partnerships with small publishers who get it can be a lifeline, as long as you protect your vision. As Thomas Happ from Axiom Verge said, you can make something unique and still plan for success. The key is knowing your limits and listening to your audience. Finding that balance turns wild ideas into real, playable games. You don't have to take it from me. Let's look at some lived wisdom. Adam Robinson Yu, indie developer behind The Short Hike, said, "I made the game for myself, but the feedback reminded me that others needed it too." Sometimes your wild little project connects with others in ways you never saw coming. Rami Ismail, a much admired voice in the indie world, explains, "A great indie game starts with a personal truth, but ends with understanding how that truth connects to others." That's the sweet spot, being true to yourself, while making something others can bond with. But let's not forget the player's role. Yeah, you. You can help keep creative passion alive and ensure indie devs eat. And pay rent. Your support as a player can transform someone's late-night coding project into an actual sustainable game and even a career. Balancing passion and profit is a tightrope walk. But if you can stay upright, the view will be amazing. The games we remember most, that inspire others to create, come from people who found a way to tell their story and still keep the light on. For developers, the journey is messy, uncertain, and sometimes heartbreaking. But it's also where truly original games are born. Gamers, you have real power. When you support indie creators, you help shape the future of gaming. One heartfelt, weird, or ambitious project at a time. And developers, remember, you're not in this game alone. Your struggles, insights, and hard-earned wisdom matter. Every game you finish, every lesson learned, adds something special to this ever-evolving art form. Keep making weird, wonderful, true-to-you games. The world is waiting to play them, even if they don't know it yet. Let me know what you think in the comments. And I'd love to hear about your own experiences, whether you're a gamer or a developer. Thanks for watching.